Yes, so let's get on with it for today. During the week, the federal government gave a directive that all telecommunication providers should make compulsory for all subscribers' identity module, otherwise known as
SIM
SIM,
cards.
should be linked to national identity number, which is the NIN. Right, okay. So they have given a two-week deadline for compliance, and any subscriber who errs will have their SIM cards blocked. This has sparked a lot of reaction from Nigerians.
As would be expected.
Well, 2 weeks is kind of short, but they inform us that they have the wherewithal to be able to achieve this in 2 weeks.
That's one reaction. Another reaction that has gone forth is a court, injunction. Where is a court where one person took the government to court. Say, look, it's my private number. I can choose to or choose to not link it with anything. Anyway.
Yeah, but it was given to you by someone, and it was given to you by that someone for a particular purpose.
My contract with the network service, telecom service provider has nothing to do with the country. That's what the first person is claiming.
Well, the plot thickens, and we're going to be hearing a lot more about this. But let's look at it critically this morning, and we have three guests who are all going to join us virtually. We have Mr. Olushola Obasa, a document security expert, and he will join us from Surulere. We have Yele Okeremi of Precise Financial Systems, who will join us from VI. And we have Ikechukwu Nnamani, President, Association of Telecoms Companies of Nigeria, will join us from Lekki. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good to have you all with us this morning.
Good morning.
Yes, let me begin with morning. Let me begin with Mr. Obasa, document security expert. That's what this is all about, isn't it? Security. What is the import of linking our NIN to our SIM cards?
You see, first and foremost, we have to understand what unequivocal identification means. That is, you have an identity that you cannot change. And that is one of the problems we have in Africa. Today, a Mohammed can become an Ibrahim. So with the NIN, you only have one number. And with that number, you can't change your identity no matter what you do. So to me, I think it's a very laudable exercise and a laudable thing that the government is doing to link the national identity number with your SIM card. Or that number actually should be your de facto identification number that will identify you as a Nigerian, so that you can be caught, in quotes, if you are trying to be funny or if you are trying to be smart. So it is very, very important. The same thing that you have in the United States with the Social Security. You go to the US, the first thing they ask you is your Social Security number. You want to open a bank account, what is your Social Security number? You want to get any benefit from the government, what is your Social Security number? Because they have unequivocal means of identification, which is a very laudable thing.
Mr. Okeremi, I understand that part about the NIN. You cannot change your identity. But what's that connection with the SIM? He has explained to us why we need a NIN, so that an Ayo cannot become Tunji tomorrow, because there are many Nigerians who have a number of passports in different names. So with the NIN now, that becomes practically impossible. But what is the importance of linking it to your SIM?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. Well, I mean, pretty much you said it all. The concept of the national identity number, the NIN, is just to ensure that everybody can be linked to one identity. And so the concept is that we take the biometric every individual that registers, so that that is registered. You cannot change your biometric, and so we know whatever name you say you are called, that will be the name you will be called wherever you are trapped, and that's significant. And the reasoning why we want to link this to the SIM card is that because the SIM, just as you know, is a subscriber identification module. It gives everybody that has a SIM card access to communicate with the rest of the world, and also gives anybody that has it access to connect to the cyberspace. And as a result of the fact that the entire world today does everything virtually, many things happen in the cyberspace, we want to be able to track who is doing what. And so the whole concept is just to know who is doing what, where, such that it becomes impossible for you to take several SIM cards, so to speak, and link them under identity. It's the why government is trying to link the NIN to SIM cards. And so that's the concept. Let me stop at that.
It's becoming clearer now. But Mr. Namani, government says that all this has to be done within 2 weeks. I mean, you are the president of the Association of Telecom Companies. Now, what are your thoughts about the time frame? I mean, we have been told that this is a very good idea, but what about the time frame within which this should be achieved?
Thanks for that question and for having me. The reality of the matter is that from the telecom operator side, this is not an issue in terms of updating the records with NIMSI. All that is required is pretty much creating a channel for which the operators can upload the registered SIM information. The problem we see here is that while currently you have about 43 million Nigerians registered at NIMSI that have NIN numbers, on the telecom side, you have over 170 million of people registered. So if the operators send all the details of the registered SIM to NIMSI, NIMSI can only match about 43 million of that. So you're going to have a lot of people who, by no fault of the telecom operators, because they've done the registration, they've uploaded the data, but you're going to have the operators being told to disconnect subscribers who, by no fault of the telecom operators, have not registered with NIMSI. And that is where the challenge is, and why there is a lot of concern, because today the subscribers use their phone not just to make call or access the internet. Most of their banking information and relationship is tied to that. That healthcare system is tied to that. So there's going to be a potential disruption if subscribers are disconnected. As we said, from the telecom side, this can be achieved. They just need to create the enabling environment for the data to be uploaded. But you're going to get more than currently, we estimate, more than 120 million numbers or potentially that is on the telecom side, which is not registered with names. So the bigger challenge is how do you quickly have more people registered under the NIMSI program so that you can do more matching of what you have on the telecom side. That is really where the challenge is. The problem from where we are sitting on the telecom side is not a telecom-related issue. It becomes a telecom-related issue when subscribers are suddenly disconnected because they don't have their NIN number. And that, unfortunately, is what is likely to happen because, as everybody has said, we don't see a realistic path where suddenly everybody that had a telecom line would be registered within the 2 weeks at NIMSI. We feel that
Mr. Namani, I do beg your pardon. Mr. Namani, I beg your pardon. Just hold that thought. We'll come back to you after this break. Welcome back. Yes, Mr. Namani, you were rounding up on your thoughts before we went on that break. Namani, are you with us?
Yes, please. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I was saying that there's going to be a disconnect when the operators upload the SIM, already registered SIM information to the NIMSIS database, because you're going to see that you have much more people, almost 4 times more people with SIM registered than you have with the NIMSI cards or NIMSI number. So that is the disconnect that needs to be bridged. How do you ensure that happens without disconnecting people? One option, obviously, is to have more people register with NIMSI and get their NII as fast as possible. There is a big debate if that can be done within the next 2 weeks, given COVID, given the holiday season. That's a big debate going on in terms of the timeline. But beyond that, there's also some discussion on other creative ways to achieve this working with the market. Beyond just asking people to go queue up and have their be registered and have a NIN card. Because on the second side, as I've said, SIM has been registered and it's available, but you now have 4 times more of those numbers than what you have in terms of the NIN.
Okay, well, there's a very, very valid point that you have raised, and I think, we should give a little more attention to it. So let me take this to Mr. Obasa. He has raised the valid point that the conversation with telecom operators, the mobile network owners, MNNs, they are only to link the NIN with the SIM cards on their networks with existing national identity numbers. Clearly, without a doubt, there is a good number of the more than 150 million telecom service subscribers who have SIM cards that do not have national identity numbers. Do you think there's sufficient information out there for those who do not have NIN, have tried to get, but have not been able to get over the years? What do you think there's sufficient information out there for them to know what to do?
And what happens to them?
And what happens to them?
That is a sticky problem, a big problem. I did my registration, I think, about 5 years ago. Until date, I don't have a card, but I have the NIN. So I want to assume that before I was given the national identity number, they must have done some, what is called a deduplication on the database. So there are, like you say, there are many people who don't have the NIN who have not registered. So I think there has to be some information about this and the reason that the government wants to do this, and they should give enough time for people to go and do their registration. And I think it is a failure of the government of NIMC in releasing, in succeeding in this laudable exercise. Because as far as I'm concerned, every Nigerian by now should have a national identity card with a national identity number. So I don't know what the problem is actually, because this is what I do. This is what I do, and I know that it is not space science. So why we keep on failing years and years and years, I don't get it. 20 years ago, during Obasanjo, we did a bid, and we submitted our bid, and we told them what we were supposed to do, and they are putting a cart before the horse, because by now the first thing that should have been done was the national ID card to have been completed before the next start. So automatically, before you get your SIM card, you put in your national ID number. But now they are telling you to put your national ID number to a SIM card for those who don't have. So what do? It's a big question. It's a big problem.
All right, well, Mr. Okeremi, I don't know if you might have some ideas about that one, because clearly it is a big challenge. Added to the fact that the mobile network operators are just 4, or maybe a significant more than that, out of the 173 agents that have been signed up to perform this activity, plus some agencies of government at the state levels as well. So that challenge, that deficit of a little less than 100 million people, 100 million network, telecom service subscribers are there now. Of course, there is also the fact that there are a good number of people who have more than one number, some 2, some 3. Well, they will all have to link that. But how big a problem do you see that deficit that we have on our hands?
Now, let me tell you the issues. The issues, when you look at the issues from a symptomatic standpoint, that's just merely taking the gap between 170 million plus SIM card that we know from NCC that have been registered. Of course, we know that this is Nigeria. Quite a number of Nigerians carry multiple cell phones. And so there might be people who actually have 5 lines, and a number of these 170 million lines are also installed in smart devices like your meters, even cars, offices in their PABXs and POSs and so many things. So 170 million doesn't necessarily depict 170 million unique citizens. But the point I'm making is that we also know that we have about 41 million people registered in NIN in a population. We don't really know what the population of Nigeria is. But, for the purpose of argument, let's take 160 million. I think the questions we really need to ask ourselves is how come I checked when we started the National Identity Project. And this has been on since about 1988. And if we have captured 41 million records since 1988, I think we need to ask ourselves certain fundamental questions. Why are we not getting traction? Now, I'll scale it up to the next point, that you then called the telcos to register lines. I thought that was a silly exercise in futility. What were you registering against? You then called everybody, you come take biometrics, and then you ask for the names. What were you comparing against? The point I'm making is that all the time, we have always put the horse after the cart. And so things seem to be moving in reverse direction. Now, all of a sudden, and for whatever reason, so whatever knee-jerk reason, government comes and says in 2 weeks, what they couldn't do in 20 years, they want all Nigerians to be registered in the national identity system. I think we have a very big joke around here. And we need to ask ourselves, how come we didn't get it done? And I'll tell you, there are very simple solutions. And one of the things, I do not want to sound bombastic here, but one of the things I see is that a lot of times I sit down and I ask myself how government works. And they tend to make it look like government is very different from business. I disagree completely. Because as far as I'm concerned, if I was running my business the way the government of Nigeria is being run, I wouldn't have been in business for 27 years. As a matter of fact, a lot of businesses would have collapsed in 3 months if they were run the way this country is run. Take, for example, you want to do this, your passport, international passport. They're going to ask you for your national identity. If you don't have a national identity, you have to go and register. Things don't work that way. There are smarter ways of doing this. BVN, we could have used the National Identity Commission, should have used both telecoms providers, the banks, the immigration services as agents for registration. So, for example, if you want to get a driver's license and you do not have a national identity, they'll ask you, what's your national identity number? If you have one, you submit it, and through a very simple API, they can verify, and all they are verifying is that it's the same name, actually. Nothing more. If it comes back with the same name, they issue you a driver's license. But if you do not have, what they should have done is there and then, the driver's license office would take the necessary details that NIPSI could have taken as an agent. They register, they take your biometrics, They ask you what name you want to be called. You give them the name, and then they submit that to NIMC. And then the NIMC would then check using the biometric thing to ensure that there is no other, you have not been registered as any other identity. And once that happens, they send the number to both the national driver's license and they send it to you. You have your national identity system and your identity number, and you can move on to do other things. Now, today they are saying that they want another 100 million, what you couldn't do in 20 years. You now want double that number in 2 weeks. I think we are joking. I think we are joking. That's my opinion about that.
All right, well, Mr. Namani, so this is where we are now. It will seem clearly that the telecom operators have become the agents of government, so to speak, now. How significant a challenge is this, where you sit, for the telecom service providers and the 173, well, all 173 agents that government has signed in, especially from the private sector, to perform this exercise? How significant a problem do you see this being for those agents? And what kind of cooperation or understanding would you be asking for from government?
Thanks. I think the main issue is first, existing databases needs to be verified and rated against NIMC's requirement. For instance, as has been said previously, if when you go to do your SIM registration, sufficient data was captured by the company registering the telecom operator that is similar to what NIMC would use. There's no reason why using that as a basis, that information cannot be provided to NIMC, and then you are issued a number as your national identity number. Then whatever is missing in terms of additional information that NIMC requires that was not captured in your SIM registration, you could be sent a message to provide that information so that your account or your details are fully uploaded in line with what you needs. If we start with that, then what you notice is that immediately, even within the 2 weeks timeline, a lot of the gaps will be bridged using existing information that telcos already have previous registration. So we can start with that. Then it's now for people that their record is not matched or that now needs to be properly registered, that the operators and all the agents that have been appointed will now spend time to do. But let's do this part because, as we said, we have a situation where we currently have all data available in terms of registered citizens with the telecom operators that will NIMC. So let's try to harmonize those two data within the 2 weeks. We know which I believe is what is going on as we speak, and then we now know where the gap is and how we can now bridge that gap to ensure that people are properly registered. Beyond that is the traditional people go to various agent locations to register, which we said because of COVID and also because of the forthcoming holiday. 2 weeks is going to be a little challenging, but it doesn't mean that process should stop. I fully recommend that process should not stop, but we just need to be mindful of the current situation in terms of people's health. And more importantly, which is where we are sitting from, disconnecting people from the telecom networks just because this has not been made is a decision that seriously needs to be revisited and looked at properly, because there's going to be consequence to the socioeconomic well-being of the citizens if we do that, and all for the people refuse when given sufficient time to do the right thing, and all for taking punitive measure, but it should not be the first line of action, especially as it's becoming clear that there are challenges on both sides, not just from the citizens, but also from the infrastructure that was needed to have people properly registered. We don't need to go back. I don't subscribe to us going back to the fact that over 20 years, things were not done properly. We are where we are now. We just need to move forward. the big question should be how do we move forward? What are the solutions in terms of moving forward?
Okay, Mr. Karami, the NCC has said that the reason for asking that SIMs should be linked to NINs is to address the security challenges facing us. People would want to ask, in what way is this going to help us?
No, there's no doubt about the soundness of the intention. I mean, it's simple. You just want to know who's doing what. You want to know who has access to what. That's the point. You want to, because once you have a mobile phone, you are connected to the entire world. And to the extent that you can send out a message, and you and I are very good witnesses to this. People send out all sorts of information on social media. So everybody now is a publisher, everybody is a journalist, and people can send all sorts of things. So the point is, we want the system, the security networks need to be able to track who is where. And I mean, absolutely anywhere in the world, that holds water. I mean, I always say the security, when it comes to security, in all other matters of life, the customer is always right, except when it comes to security. Because when it comes to security, the security people cannot afford to have any sleep. So that intention is correct. I support it. However, good intentions do not necessarily give good results. Before you get good results, you need to also combine with having a sound game plan and have very competent people running it. And then you need to be disciplined. It is when you mix these four things together that you get good results. And so the intention of wanting to have the link, nobody will ever query that. It is sound. But what is the game plan? Now today, we seem to have a game plan. I don't know how it's going to work yet. What NIMC has done is to recruit a number of agents.
Mr. Okiremi, I'd like to take one opinion from Mr. Obasa on something that a number of people have already begun to query about this just before we end this segment of the program. And that's the fact that some are saying owning a SIM is an avenue for freedom of expression, which is guaranteed in the Constitution. That blocking my SIM because I do not connect it with a national identity number is an infringement of that right. How do you respond?
Well, we are a nation governed by laws, and we have a constitution. And like the last speaker said, security is important, and actually security is sacrosanct. When there is no security, every facet of life grounds to a halt. And security is what no government jokes with. So when you say your right is infringed upon when you don't obey the law, I think you are definitely wrong. The law is saying that before you have a phone, having a phone is not a fundamental human right. I mean, you can live your life perfectly without having a phone. I mean, when we were growing up, we didn't have phones, and we lived, and life continued. It's just an enhancement to enhance your life and make it better. So if the government now says that for you to have a phone, you must link your national identity number because of security purposes, then you are obliged to obey the law. If not so, you'll be infringing on the law, and the law says that if you don't do that, you can't use your phone. So you can't say that your right is being infringed upon. So to me, I think that's just a non-starter.
I'm sorry, we have run completely out of time. Thank you very much. But this conversation doesn't end here. I'm sure we'll still hear more about this. Mr. Lushola Obasa, Mr. Yele Okiremi, and Mr. Ikechukwu Nnamani, all of whom joined us virtually. Thank you very much for coming to enlighten us this morning. Sunrise will return with another interesting conversation in just a moment. Stay with us.